We're hearing that the default could trigger $1 billion of credit default swaps. What's the impact of that?
Well, the ISDN, which is the body that governs the swaps and CDS market, had a meeting today at 11 this morning, and there had been some confusion about what they would ultimately decide. So they have ruled they view this as a credit event. It's going to trigger these swaps. And now a somewhat imprecise process of auction and negotiation happens. They're going to value all of the bonds underlying these contracts, and then the parties will get together and negotiate payment. And we're not exactly sure how long that's going to take.
Okay, now we're looking at a possible domino effect because other bondholders might exercise their right and they might demand immediate repayment because of this default. If that happens, is that just another Pandora's box here?
Well, that is potentially quite serious. There are clauses in these bonds that basically say that failure to pay one set of bondholders could trigger a demand for accelerated repayment of all the other bonds, so potentially $120 billion worth of claims. So 25% of the outstanding holders have to get together and sort of tell Argentina, you know, we think that we deserve this accelerated repayment under our contract. We're going to demand this money. So that is really the next big question mark facing the Argentine government and, you know, issue to be resolved from this ongoing messy negotiation.
And meantime, there's over $500 million still here in a bank here in New York that they can't touch, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the easiest solution really to all of this would be for this New York judge to allow that payment to go through, because Argentina has been saying we have not defaulted. We put the money at Bank of New York Mellon. That is the trustee for these bondholders. We wash our hands of it. Now, of course, technically, they still have defaulted because the money has been blocked. But yes, Argentina is trying to say, this judge has it in for us.
And he believes that Argentinian officials believe it's a technical default then because the money's there.
That's right. Well, the president of Argentina last night, she said, well, they've invented a new term for this. It's a selective default. She had some very harsh words for this judge, but she said, we have not actually defaulted. And you get a sense that it's become a bit political for her. So she does not want to cave in. And she says, we're not going to do anything that's going to hurt Argentine people.
Okay, so President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, she is still remaining defiant. Then what's her strategy going forward?
Well, it's a bit of an interesting conundrum for them because really the best scenario would be for this payment to go through. However, default is not a complete disaster for Argentina in terms of the rulers and political class of Argentina.
This is not 2001.
Exactly. And it does serve one purpose, which is it eliminates a lot of the leverage that the hedge fund holdouts had here. So their leverage was, we're going to push you into default. They've defaulted. The sky hasn't fallen. That's what she was saying last night. So now they are going to argue for either the judge to lift this stay and allow this payment to go through, or for someone to sort of give them more time.
Okay, so what is the best case scenario for Argentina at this point?
Well, there's no great scenario, but I think one possibility would be that the judge caves to all this pressure. And there was a hearing this morning, and he had some very harsh words for Argentina. He basically told their lawyers from the law firm Cleary Gottlieb, you know, your client in Argentina, they are not helping themselves. They're making all these hyperbolic, inflammatory statements. They're saying things that aren't really true. So I want you to listen. And the judge seems to be holding firm on his position.
All right. Sheelah, before we let you go, because the tentacles of this, because when we had some guests on discussing this before, Argentina had taken out that full-page ad in the paper. They were trying to, I guess, get some PR support on their side. You have folks here like Elliott who are demanding their money. They want their payment in full. Just for a little historical perspective, we're talking about companies who got in during the first default. And I guess the situation now has spun so much out of control that they're saying, okay, we want all our money, but we don't want to take a pay cut. We don't want to take a haircut. We want every dime back.
Well, this sort of thing does not happen very often. And so we're in a little bit uncharted waters at this point. And that was true even going into this debate about the credit default swap decision, because it's a default, but it's a very unusual kind of default. It is not like what happened in 2001. It is quite a bit messier because this partial payment has occurred. So a lot of this is going to get sorted out in New York courts.
Sheelah, before you go, I have to ask you, because I was talking to Katya Porzakansky, who's also covering this story. Did you find it odd that with the deadline approaching on Thursday, that the folks from Argentina actually came to New York at 6 p.m. on Wednesday night, the day before the deadline? Have we figured out why they came so late for their first face-to-face talks?
We don't know the reason.
We still don't know.
There's been some interesting body language out of them from the beginning. It could be cultural differences, but you know, the economy minister, who is the one who kind of breezed in late to that meeting, through this whole thing has not inspired a lot of confidence that he's taking this very seriously. And in his press conference after the talks fell apart, he rambled on. He hurled a lot of insults, and one got the sense that he's a little bit out of his depth. And yeah, so we'll have to see what happens.